Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. The big stories tonight. As probes on the unauthorized vaccination of some PSG personnel are set to start, the palace still refuses to give further details on the entry of the shots. And should it be true, Malacanang also welcomes reports that some 100,000 POGO workers were inoculated here. Cases may have gone below the 1,000 mark, but the health department says the real surge might show by mid-January. The DOH also expects this week the test results which will show if the British variant has entered the Philippines. The Misuari faction of the Moro National Liberation Front is denying having forces outside the Bangsamoro. This follows the arrest of some 35 people in Rizal claiming to be part of the MNLF. The President himself is backing a move to defer PhilHealth's contribution hike this year, but that might require new legislation. A new problem has arisen over distance learning, students selling lewd photos online and even sexual services to finance their online classes. The Justice Department wants an NBI report on the matter in 10 days. We begin tonight with Malacanang still defending the supposed vaccination involving the PSG. This time, the palace says proposals to investigate the move in the Senate should be deemed as overstepping boundaries. Maricel Halili explains.
Malacanang is questioning the plan of some senators to investigate the inoculation of some members of the Presidential Security Group. Palace insists there must be mutual respect among co-equal branches of the government. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says the initiative of the PSG to be vaccinated is a security concern of the executive branch and not a political issue.
Hindi naman po pinaghihimasukan ng Presidente ang seguridad kung paano nagpapatubad ng seguridad ang Senado. Bakit naman paghihimasukan yung pagbibigay seguridad sa ating Presidente?
Despite the lack of transparency over the vaccination, Malacanang still refused to discuss further how the unauthorized Sinopharm vaccines were brought to the country. Recall that it was President Duterte himself who brought the issue to the public's attention.
No, it's not a fair question, it's immaterial. Ang material dito, sinugal nila mga buhay nila para protektahan ng Presidente, full stop. That's their business, okay?
The Senate is set to hold a hearing on COVID-19 vaccines on January 11. But Senate President Tito Soto says it's still uncertain whether the PSG vaccination is on their agenda. He also downplays the issue, saying anti-flu shots may have been used on the troops and not COVID vaccines. In her weekly radio program, Vice President Leni Robredo said ignoring the actions of the PSG is no different to tolerating wrongdoings. She hopes that there won't be any cover-up on the matter. Malacanang assures the PSG's cooperation.
Haharap mahusay sila sa mga investigasyon. Siyempre po, wala po tayong tinatago, VP Leni Robredo.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque has already asked Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana for the list of PSG personnel who received the jabs. The DOH wants to monitor possible side effects. The National Bureau of Investigation is set to start its probe on the matter. The investigation will include the reported importation, sale, offering for sale, distribution, and inoculation of COVID-19 vaccines that are not authorized by the Food and Drug Administration.
I cannot give you the details because this is the investigation part, but we will have to check on how these vaccines may have landed on Philippine shores. We will check with the FDA for the possible violation of their laws kung itong vaccines ay registered o hindi, o kuya kung ano na status, kung ito ay pinaparehistro. Possible violation also of the Medical Practice Act dun sa mga nag-administer o nagturok nito.
The NBI must submit a progress report to the Office of the Justice Secretary within 10 days. But apart from PSG troops, Chinese-Filipino civic leader Teresita Ang Si claims that some 100,000 POGO workers have been vaccinated in the country. A report which the palace took positively, saying it means lesser COVID-19 carriers if it were true. For News 5, Maricel Halili, we are One News.
2 Chinese pharmaceutical firms are expected to apply for emergency use of their COVID-19 vaccines in the Philippines this week. These are Sinovac Biotech and state-owned Sinopharm, whose vaccines were used for the vaccination of PSG members. Philippine Ambassador to China, Chito Santa Romana, says the embassy is now coordinating with the two firms in the local FDA for the process. Sinopharm has already received conditional approval in China, while Sinovac expects the same this month.
Our embassy is in touch with these two companies, of course, and we try to facilitate their contact with IATF and if there is any information that's needed.
The private sector is eyeing AstraZeneca shots. Ayala Corporation has ordered a total of 450,000 doses from the vaccine maker. This is under the tripartite agreement between the government and conglomerates. Ayala CEO Fernando Zebelde Ayala says the private sector will donate half of the doses to the government, which is valued at 120 million pesos.
I'd like to think that the private sector has come through in a very big way with a call from the government and tried to do everything that they could, not only for their employees, their suppliers, but the public in general.
More local governments have unveiled plans to vaccinate their residents. Makati City has allotted 1 billion pesos to vaccinate residents for free. The Health Department says we have to wait mid-month to determine if there was indeed a post-holiday surge. But an expert is warning against a false surge. Why is that? Gregorio tells us.
It's been largely expected that there will be a post-holiday surge in COVID-19 cases across the country. But since the festivities, infections have been down below the 1,000 mark. But the Health Department says that might change come mid-January.
Sa January 15 pa lang natin talaga malalaman kung ang inaasahan bang surge ay mangyayari o hindi. Dahil itong nakaraan na mga holiday season.
DOH says reduced COVID-19 testing during the holidays affected the numbers. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergara says some laboratories were non-operational during the Christmas break, and some of those who operate did not receive any specimen. Average daily lab outputs went down by more than 10,000. One testing center was also suspended, while 4 others might follow suit for failure to submit test results.
Mid-January, baka lumabas dyan, lalabas yung pagdami ng kaso at tataas talaga. Basically because itong laboratories natin would be fully functional already and fully operational start today.
The Octa research team's Guido David tells One News's agenda that they have yet to determine a post-holiday surge. The team relies heavily on DOH data.
More of parang trend analysis and extrapolation na cases are starting to increase, although may nakita na kaming indicator na cases are starting to increase again in Metro Manila as more test centers reopen.
He says there may also be a false sense of surge in cases as more backlogs get cleared.
We should be careful na ma-separate natin yung backlog and yung due to the closing of the testing centers and kung may genuine surge.
But health authorities are monitoring one other thing, the presence of COVID-19's British variant in the country. The Philippine Genome Center is wrapping up its gene sequencing of positive samples since November. This includes positive samples of individuals from countries with reported cases of the variant. Vergara says results may be out by Thursday.
Ang ginagawa natin sa ngayon, lahat ng dumadating from affected countries that we have already identified are being swabbed. No? They get to be swabbed, dalawa, parallel swabbing tayo. Yung isa para dun sa swab mismo for the RT-PCR, yung isa para isi-send sa gene for genome sequencing.
The DOH will be meeting with the IATF to discuss the possibility of adding more countries on its travel ban list due to the spread of the British variant. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Ahead of an expected surge, the City of Manila has already imposed mandatory swab testing on returning residents. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno says the tests are completely free. Residents must pay in testing centers for a day or two pending test results. Those who test positive will be brought to quarantine facilities. We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns. President Duterte himself supports the postponement of PhilHealth's contribution hikes, but that may require a new law. And let's take a deep dive into the alleged presence of Moro National Liberation Front forces in Luzon. The details later. Si Bok? Bok?
Yo, yo.
Okay. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The Misuari faction of the Moro National Liberation Front is denying having forces outside of the Bangsamoro. This follows the December 28 arrest of 35 people in Region 4A who claim to be part of the group. But in a phone interview with One News, spokesman Emmanuel Fontanilla says while the MNLF welcomes sympathizers to organize, they have no power to actually arm them.
Wala kaming authorized na regular unit o soldiers dyan sa Luzon dahil hindi yan Bangsamoro area. That's not our jurisdiction. Itong mga tao nito, mga illegal ito na nagre-represent ng authority na hindi namin authorized.
To discuss the supposed presence of MNLF forces in Luzon further, our chief correspondent Ed Lingau joins us. Ed, we keep emphasizing supposed, alleged. We have this very strong denial from MNLF. What else? So does that end the story there?
Well, this is what we know so far. The group went to great lengths to try to identify itself with the Miswari faction and even with the government. You would see in the photos that they posted on Facebook, tarps with photos of President Duterte and Nur Miswari, as well as logos of the PNP and the DILG. The group had been claiming that they were authorized and recognized by Malacanang and the PNP and the DILG. They identified themselves as members of the Bangsamoro Defense Force, the Southern Luzon Command, and the Camp Asa Camp Lideric. The group comes complete with the flags of the MNLF, uniforms or military uniforms, and MNLF patches with the MNLF black beret. Of course, you clearly have a very, very strong denial from both factions of the MNLF that the group is theirs. Now, who are these people? I think that's what the military is trying to find out right now. But it's safe to say at this point that most of them are from Luzon, although one of them appears to be from Basilan Island. Many of them appear to be only recruits. However, there are some who appear to be officials or claim to be officials, and one of them claims to be a brigadier general. Also, the fact that they were caught with firearms, most of them pistols, including one shotgun. We have no information yet as to whether or not high-powered firearms were also found on site.
Okay, now, and assuming that they are in one way or another associated, would that be a new thing, or is there history or precedence to finding MNLF forces outside of the Bangsamoro region?
Well, Robbie, not necessarily MNF forces, but it's not the first time that they supposed the training camp for Moro rebels was set up in Luzon, and that's assuming that this is one of them. Back in the mid-2000s, in 2004 and 2005, up to 2006, the Raha Soliman group was setting up training camps in Anda, Pangasinan, and that was discovered by authorities a little belatedly. The Raha Soliman group is a terrorist group affiliated with the Abu Sayyaf group. It's composed of former overseas workers who had converted to Islam while they were in the Middle East. Now, we say it's affiliated with the Abu Sayyaf group because in part they were being funded by the Abu Sayyaf, and that the Raha Suleiman group took part in some terror activities in the mid-2000s, including the Super Ferry bombing in 2004 that killed a lot of people, and the Valentine's Day bombing here in Metro Manila in 2005. So there is some precedent here, and that is, I suppose, why you have authorities trying to make sure that all bases are covered, even though they're not sure whether this one really is cause for concern.
Okay, One News Chief Correspondent Ed Lingau, maraming salamat. We'll continue to follow that story. Lawmakers are calling to amend the Universal Healthcare Law to suspend PhilHealth's contribution hike this year. This move enjoys a boost from no less than the Chief Executive himself. Ria Fernandez with the details.
Calls to defer the implementation of PhilHealth's premium hike just got louder. President Rodrigo Duterte, according to close aide Senator Bongo, backs the move. He says Duterte vows to sign any measure that will halt the increase. The senator says Duterte is also open to augment the state insurer's budget to avoid a pause in its services. On One News program agenda, Marikina Representative Stella Kimbo reiterates her call to privatize the controversy-ridden agency. She has also floated a possible way to temporarily suspend the augmentation of PhilHealth premiums.
Ang problema, Sito, yung premium increase is part of a law. So talagang to prevent that from happening, we need another law. So that's, ako, kung meron akong wish list, kasama dapat yan. We have to find a way. So ideally, sa Bayanihan 3, no? Ilagay dapat natin dyan ang provision na kailangan isuspend muna ang increase ng PhilHealth premiums sa taong 2020.
House Health Committee Chairperson Helen Tan assures that utmost priority will be given to proposals postponing PhilHealth's premium hike. But according to Anakalusugan Representative Mike Defensor, the Public Accounts Committee, which he formerly chaired, already sought to stop the mandatory contribution increases on OFWs as early as August. This through a report seeking to amend the Universal Healthcare Law submitted to the Health Panel. But even without these remedies, Defensor believes PhilHealth can postpone on its own the hike for at least 6 months. He is convinced that this won't affect the state insurers' operations as they have enough funds.
If necessary, at kung mananawagan ng PhilHealth na kailangan namin magpasa ng joint resolution na wag muna itong i-implement this particular provision, then we will do that.
Senate President Tito Soto said senators can fast-break the passage of a law to temporarily halt the PhilHealth premium hike. Health Secretary Duque reminds lawmakers, meanwhile, that as of this moment, the ball is in their hands.
Kailangan po siguro rito ay magkaroon ng amyenda ang batas para mapagbigyan po ang kanilang nais na i-defer or i-delay ang imposition or implementation of the premium contributions rate.
Effective January 1, the premium rate of contributions has gone up to 3.5% in accordance to the Universal Healthcare Law. This means that those who earn 10,000 pesos and below must pay 350 pesos monthly. Meanwhile, those who earn more than 10,000 and up to 70,000 will have to pay a premium of up to 2,500 pesos per month. For News 5, Ria Fernandez, we are One News.
One lawmaker is also proposing the postponement for the scheduled contribution hike of the Social Security System, or SSS. Labor Committee Chairman Joel Villanueva filed Senate Bill 1965. It seeks to temporarily halt the effectivity of a new 13% contribution rate under the state insurer. PhilHealth pushed through with its own premium hike this year despite a string of corruption anomalies in 2020. Pag-ibig, on the other hand, has decided to defer its contribution increase due to the pandemic.
Wala naman pong naka-anticipate na magkakaroon ng ganitong pandemya at mahihirapan ng gusto ang ating mga manggagawang kababayan, ang ating mga employers, bigyan po natin sila ng konting panahon pa para makarecover until such a time na pwede na natin increase ulit ang contribution ng SSS.
And these are the other big stories tonight. The Justice Department has indicted 9 policemen who ordered 4 soldiers in Hulo June of last year. The police officers were charged with 4 counts of murder and planting evidence. Complaints of neglect of duty were, however, dismissed against the superiors. Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara wants warrants of arrest to be secured against the 9 police officers. The localized traslasyon leading to the Feast of the Black Nazarene on January 9 has already started. Earlier today, the Black Nazarene's replica was brought to the Manila City Hall. It will stay there overnight to give devotees a chance to see the image. It will then be brought to the Bureau of Fire Protection in Quezon City. Davao de Oro, meanwhile, will hold a bicicleta de traslasyon. Bikers will follow a motorcade carrying the pilgrim image across nearby MGCQ areas. The Armed Forces of the Philippines is warning communist rebels against plans of deploying partisan units in urban areas to attack government forces. The AFP says this plan by the Communist Party of the Philippines and its armed wing, the New People's Army, is terrorism and would be in violation of the international humanitarian law. Last year, President Duterte terminated any hopes of a ceasefire with the Reds until the end of his term. We'll go for another quick break. When the big story returns, the Justice Department wants the NBI to look into the alleged selling of students' lewd materials to fund their online education. And weeks before he steps down, U.S. President Donald Trump is embroiled in yet another controversy as he seeks to overturn the election results. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused financial constraints for some more than others, as in the case of some students strapped for cash who supposedly have been resorting to selling nude photos online. How are authorities responding? Shiloh Francisco tells us in this report.
It was in August last year when Bong, not his real name, started sending sensual pictures online. He says he had no other choice but to do it due to lack of funds for his education as a college student. For only 500 pesos, Bong will send at least 5 pictures and 2 videos to a customer. His video call rates, meanwhile, go for 100 pesos per minute, while a hookup costs around 5,000 pesos.
Sobrang hirap po ng sitwasyon niya. College student po ako. Sobrang taas po ng tuition. Sobrang hirap po.
A quick search online shows other students, some minors, resorting to selling nudes under several hashtags. On Christmas, some users even offered promos and bundles for their restricted photos and videos. The materials are priced for as low as 150 pesos, which can be paid online either directly or through a middleman. This has prompted Senator Win Gatchalian to call the attention of the Justice Department and National Police. Gatchalian, who chairs the Committee on Basic Education, Arts and Culture, urged an intensified crackdown on such acts. In a statement, the lawmaker notes that the pandemic has made students more vulnerable to sexual abuse. For its part, the PNP Anti-Cybercrime Division vows to investigate and monitor such posts on social media. Chief Debold Sinas, however, notes that they can only step in when someone files a complaint.
Kasi mahirap din naman kung mga personal accounts nila yon at papakialaman po natin, no? Until such time that we will complain na in-exploit sila or may violation po, saka po muna makikialam ang pulis po doon. We'll task our cybercrime to monitor this one and maybe track and inform the parents or forward the problems to DSWD for their intervention.
The NBI Cybercrime Division meanwhile says they have been tracking the activity since June.
Totoo may mga estudyanteng gumagawa ng ganito. Kaya lang may mga nakikita din kami na nagpe-pretend lang sila na mga estudyante sila pero mga professional workers sila.
Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara has directed the NBI to submit investigation reports in 10 days. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
Now time for the big stories in sports. A look at the game with Laura Lehman.
Thanks, Robbie. In NBA news, Steph Curry added another game to the record books with a new career-high 62 points in a big win for the Warriors against the Trailblazers, 137-122. The three-time NBA champion shot 18 for 31 and already had 30 points by halftime. Curry now holds the current season-high scoring performance so far in the regular season. The two-time MVP will look to follow up his statement game in the Warriors' next game against the Sacramento Kings tomorrow morning, Manila time. In the PBA, the league has already set a date for its opening next season, in April. But logistics and certain aspects of the upcoming conference are still undecided due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In an interview with Noli Iyala on Radio 5's Power and Play, PBA Commissioner Willie Marshall says he is hopeful in staging at least 2 conferences, as well as opening the new season on the league's 46th anniversary.
Titingnan natin kung sa April kung may vaccine na, anong klaseng bubble, pwede ba yung source secret bubble, or yung bubble na ginawa natin, anong klaseng sun venue, ano ang ekonomiya natin, anong papayagan ng gobyerno para makapaglaro PBA. So, asa daw hindi ko pa masagot. Siguro by Feb, by March, malalaman na natin. Pero balak pa rin natin matuloy din sa anniversary natin kung April 9, kung papalarin tayo.
And that's it for the latest in the world of sports. Catch us later at 9:30 p.m. only here on One News and One Sports Plus. I'm Laura Lehman, and this has been The Game. Now back to you, Robbie.
Thanks, Laura. Outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump is making headlines weeks before stepping down from office. U.S. media released an hour-long phone call of him pressuring Georgia's top official to help overturn his defeat. On the released recording of the call, Trump repeatedly pressured Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to declare Trump won more votes than Biden. He wanted to find some 11,000 votes. He was also heard saying, quote, "There's nothing wrong in saying they've recalculated." Final results show Biden won about 11,700 more votes than Trump out of nearly 5 million cast in Georgia. A trip to the spa may sound relaxing, but a certain kind of massage in Egypt could actually give customers an adrenaline rush. In this spa room in Cairo, live snakes slither on the backs and faces of customers for their 30-minute massage session. After rubbing oil on clients' backs, masseurs use pythons or around 28 different types of non-venomous snakes for the massage. Customers say not only does it relax them, it also gives them a confidence boost. The owner claims that snake massages may also reduce muscle and joint pain, as well as improve blood circulation and release endorphins. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.